just because you dress like a woman, talk like a woman, act like a woman, it does not make you a woman. And I am so tired of us allowing these people to let us live in delusion. It is delusional. We don't need personal pronouns. I don't think it's kind to allow people to live in delusion.
Wait, are you
at the end of the day,
other than
we don't
the
look.
regular.
We all know what a man and a woman is. Okay, just because you dress like a woman, talk like a woman, act like a woman, it does not make you a woman. And I am so tired of us allowing these people to let us live in delusion. It is delusional to think you are the opposite gender, and it is not kind.
But you, James,
so
you want to stop Dylan getting a role in a Hollywood film?
I am not going to get into an attack on a dwarf.
You don't want a dwarf actor to land a role playing a dwarf part.
Listen, a dwarf can play a dwarf part, but I think it's important to change narratives that don't fit in today's society. And really, narrative? It might be better if dwarves just exist in normal roles everywhere, because they do exist.
What was so bad about the way dwarves were depicted in Snow White? Have I missed something?
Well, listen, I'm not here to talk about...
That's what I'm kind of wondering as well.
I don't represent Disney, but I'm just saying I think I see their point of view.
What's their point of view? What was so bad about the depiction of the dwarves?
Why are you so upset about a movie changing with the times and moving forward?
Because I think that, honestly, with great respect...
There is real news we could be discussing.
No, but this is real news if you're a dwarf actor who are now out of work because of virtue-signalling idiots.
But you're just
who think that everything has to be rewritten to be inclusive,
as a cheap
when in fact it's not inclusive at all.
No, you're using Dylan as a cheap shot to attack a wokie.
I don't think Dylan feels I'm using him as a cheap shot. And what I would say about the wokie thing is this. I have spent the last year listening to people tell me only gay actors should play gay parts. Only Welsh actors, so Michael Sheen, should play Welsh characters. And so on and so on and so on. But the moment we have dwarf roles, which are the most famous dwarf roles in Hollywood history, then the only people apparently who can't play them are dwarf actors. And I see there
it's a cartoon
stinking woke hypocrisy.
I think all of the women should thank the men for funding our leagues, because most of our leagues would not exist without the men, number one. Number two, when we have the same numbers, then we should get the same pay. I'm sorry, I play volleyball at the highest level, and it's like, when we make what the men make and get the crowds that the men draw, then we should get paid the same.
Also, why is it actually a fight for equality, Grace? I mean, why, if women in a particular sport, for example, turned out to generate more revenue, right, because they were more watchable, and in America, the women's football team is better than the men, and they do generate, even at school level, far more interest from girls than boys, for example, I don't see why equality should be the aim. Why shouldn't they get paid more than the men?
Well, look, I mean, there are all sorts of problems with the way that this market for labour, and it is basically a market for labour, works. Like, I personally don't think that the top football players in the world should be paid as much as they do. I think it's ridiculous, the amount.
But that's market force.
Exactly. It's market forces.
Well, why shouldn't they get that?
Should that be the way that we decide, you know, who generates what? Personally, I'm very much in favour of the fact that they came out there and said collective bargaining. Ultimately, like, the average worker in this country hasn't had a pay rise in over a decade. How is that going to change? That's going to change when they organise with one another.
I am so tired of women whining.
Mate, the only person whining at the moment is you.
Literally, the men fund our leagues, and we will still whine that we don't get paid enough. And honestly, when athletes do shit like this, it makes all of us look bad. Because instead of being thankful for the league that we have, we go out and whine and complain about the pay.
I mean, as I said, I'm not whining. You sound like you're maybe doing a bit of whining.
The guidance that the British police have had in recent years has consistently been to protect the protesters from the general public, rather than protecting the general public from having their lives repeatedly
Do you remember what happened when we had protests around the murder of Sarah Everard? Do you remember the police treatment of those women there?
Yeah,
I remember it very well.
absolutely.
In fact, and this continuously happens quite a lot. We have astonishingly now draconian rules about protest. And it was not that long ago, I remember, where, you know, a lot of the subjects and debates that we would have been having was about, are the left snowflakes? They want to shut everyone down. They want to cancel everyone. We, you know, want to protect free speech. What happened to the free speech defenders? The right to protest is genuinely at risk
no
in this country.
No one is saying they can't protest.
It is at risk in this country.
No one's saying they can't protest.
If I can just say, so there was a false equivalence
to them causing literally, as in today with this incident, a car.
That was a false equivalence right there.
Incredibly small-minded when you say, people are trying to go about their day, and there are people basically literally standing here saying, all I want to do is highlight the fact that there are going to be millions, hundreds of millions of people who will die if we don't change course right now. And you say, but look,
we all have strong views. We all have strong views on a wide range of subjects. As it happens, the policing of the Sarah Everard case was a classic case of the police getting it wrong. Everybody admits that. The commissioner had to step down after it. That was people protesting peacefully, as it happened during a period of lockdown. But the point is with the Just Stop Oil people is they do have a kind of protection because it seems that the advice that the police have repeatedly given the leader of the police forces in Britain has been that because climate change has become such an obsession of so many people in Britain, you might lose public sympathy for the police if the police were seen to be cracking down too hard on climate protesters.
Here's what I would say about
it.
Nigel Farage went out of his way to try and wreck my opening night interview with Donald Trump for this show over a year ago. He literally went to Trump with all the worst things I said about Trump in the previous year and said, look at this, you can't do the interview. And Trump nearly pulled the plug. So I have absolutely zero reason to say anything supportive of Nigel Farage. And he works for a rival network as an amateur broadcaster. Again, that's another reason not to say anything nice about him. However, I've got to say, as a Coutts customer myself, I find this very concerning. And I rang them today to ask. I rang them to ask to speak to them today, but they said they couldn't talk about it because by doing so they would be providing information about a client. I presume they mean Nigel Farage. But here's my point about it. I have what some people consider controversial views. I don't think they're controversial, but I have quite strong views about other things. I'm not quite sure why his are deemed less acceptable in terms of being a banking customer in the UK
do you know why?
than mine. I may not agree with him about a number of things. I'm just not sure why I tick boxes and he doesn't when it comes to a right to have an opinion in what I thought was a free democracy.
It's because the bank
It could be you tomorrow, Piers. It could be Grace the day after, me the day after that.
The bank has deemed, based on an assessment of risk, which it has very professional people to do, it said it is going to potentially, over the long run, damage our profits if we offer this person a bank account. This is a decision that banks make every day. Not to offer bank accounts to low-income customers,
I have to say
close branches. And it's wrong.
Having read the full details that appeared in the Telegraph today, I don't think there are grounds that suit that.
And also,
I don't think there is any damage to
But ultimately, the bank is able to do it because it's a private bank. Let's have public banking.
Don't forget that Coutts lied and briefed a lie to the BBC, which the BBC then reported. They're not interested in the truth at Coutts. I'd get your money out, Piers.
Bear Grylls said recently I was a vegan quite a few years. He said, but I thought it was good for the environment. I thought it was good for my health. And through time and experience and knowledge and study, I realised I was wrong on both counts. It was bad for the environment, bad for his health.
He was never a vegan in the first place. Veganism is an ethical view against animal abuse and murder. If you're against animal abuse and murder, you never contributed to it again.
He wrote a vegan cookbook.
It wasn't actually a vegan cookbook. It contained animal abuse and murder.
So you're saying
products.
Bear Grylls was a fake vegan?
He never was a vegan.
He was a vegan?
No, absolutely.
You're saying he's a liar? He's not a liar.
No, well, I've looked at the cookbook
you may
and
not
there
have
were animal products.
Well, you may not have liked the fact that he went back to eating meat, but he was a vegan for quite a while.
Well, people go by that label all the time, but if they actually truly hold their ethical view against animal abuse and murder, then they would never turn back on veganism.
The last rapper that I interviewed in this very studio was Kanye West.
Yeah.
You've had a wobbly relationship with him, but you're back on track. I read that you saw him, in fact, a few days ago.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. I mean, we were always cool. You know, he spoke my name without really explaining what he meant. And I just really couldn't leave that statement out there without, he never explained what he meant. And so I had to, kind of rebut that. But since then we've talked, and I think Ye understands that generalizing will always get you in more hot water than being very specific. You can
because I haven't really seen much of him since I interviewed him. He's kind of disappeared. I mean, how is he? How's he dealing with what's happened to him?
I believe he's doing great. He's still dealing with some people trying to hold on to his money. But for the most part, I believe he's in a good space. I think he's, learned a lot from this past year, and, hopefully he'll come out better on the other side.
When you saw some of the crazier things he was saying, the anti-Semitic statements he was making, what did you feel as someone who knew him well? What did you feel about that?
I felt that if he was really upset with specific people, that the message he was saying would kind of hijack what he's really upset about, and that's kind of what happened. You just can't generalize. You have to be specific, especially if you're talking about anybody, any race of people. You have to be specific on who exactly you're talking about.